back, everybody, to Discussions with Father Krier, the pastor down here at St. Joseph's Catholic Church, downtown Las Vegas. And Father Krier has been in church starting, I guess, your 31st year.
Yes.
Down here, and in addition, since 1997, for all intents and purposes, you have been the solo pastor down here, and it's been quite an experience for you, Father. And for I want to thank you for things that you've done for me and inspiration that you've provided me. And welcome back for another discussion.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're going to have to muster up a little bit of, we're going to sit up straight here today, because we're going to talk about the Catholic female feminism in the Catholic faith. And Father, this is a real hot button issue, especially when we're at a time in society where we have the equivalency of male and female, and anything you can do, I can do better. And the Catholic Church has had to navigate some difficult waters because, well, the Catholic Church, for all intents and purposes, is a patriarchy. It's male run. The CEO, for all intents and purposes, the vice presidents, the bishops here are all male, as well as the priests. And, Father, I don't want to say give justification for something, but obviously there's some foundation for the belief of the Catholic Church that the way that the organization is arranged. And what do we say to women today that may feel like we want a bigger role within the church? And well, and we've seen in a lot of the Protestant denominations that women have assumed pastoral leadership and are running churches now, and female bishops and things. Just address that, and your thoughts on what we gain or lose, or what the thinking of the church is, and how women that are Catholic can have a more fulfilling role within and feel, I don't want to satisfied that they're contributing to. Is it a question of humility and humbleness? How would you approach this to answer this in terms of women's role?
We just had the movie, and I haven't seen it myself, but I know we had the movie Cabrini, and I don't think when you look at this determined woman that she in any way did nothing but fulfill her role as a woman in that aspect of recognizing that that's what she is. What we have to first start out is we have to look at that foundation that God himself has established, and that is the family. And it says there again, male and female, he creates them. But he says even before that, man, made in the image and likeness of God. And when we look at God, especially for ourselves as Catholics, we again look at the Father, we look at the Son, and we look at that relationship that is there, that brings that together, that of the Holy Ghost. And as we again see this aspect of a father and the role of a father, which St. Paul again says, from whom all paternity comes, that aspect of a role that we again look at for a father is one who provides, who protects, who guides, who sustains. And as we have this, then definitely we recognize that it's a matter of strength. And definitely brings in that controversy between that of strength and weak. And we don't want to look at weakness, because that would be the wrong term. We want to look at that aspect of being able to, again, complete that which is a responsibility. And that responsibility, again, is to provide. Now, when it comes to a father, he has no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. But when he, again, chooses to be a father, he, again, chooses to make sure, no matter what, that his family is going to be provided. And he, again, has to make sure that no matter what, he, again, protects his family. And that they are secure, so they, again, can function and grow as the children that are there, the wife herself. Now, so with that idea of looking at the father, then you have that of, again, that role that Christ himself comes in as the husband, as the groom, who again has that of the church, which is the bride. And so definitely we have to have that of Christ himself being the man, the perfect man. And therefore, as such, again, he is the one who again directs the church, who again says this is how it is, institutes the sacraments, and therefore we ourselves actually join him in that of what he again calls us to. And therefore, if we see these aspects that are there, and then those who again represent the Christ, and therefore that of the hierarchy of the church, we can say, which is the bishops, the priests, we recognize then that that functions always in that of the manliness, that again of what a man ought to be. And it's not that there's failures, it's that idea that it has to be again presented, because we always have to strive and reach and try to obtain the idea. When we see this, then definitely we recognize that in the church is going to be patterned in that same sense, is going to again have that same function. When it comes, and we see that again when we look at the patriarchs of the Old Testament also that are brought out. When it comes to that of the woman's role though, we have a unique role. And that unique role is that again of what we see in that of even the name given to the first woman, Eve, the mother of all the living. And therefore, when we see that, we don't see man being the father of all the living. We see the woman being the mother of all the living. And therefore, her role is to bring life into this world, is to cultivate that life. And giving herself to that, we again can see that it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of attention, it takes a lot of sacrifice, a lot of giving. And that's what love is, giving. And so when we look at that of a woman again, and realizing that there's no man who can say, I gave life. Rather, it's only the woman who could say, I gave life. And we realize that again when it comes to that nurturing of the child, we again see that.
Do you think we've diminished that aspect of the value of
certainly
nurturing and criticalness in the formation of a living thing?
Certainly, and I would go back to Francis Bacon and a complete revolution, so to say, in the thought of the world itself. Because the aspect isn't, so to say, until that time it was, I'm a man, I'm a woman. And that realization again is such, again, I have this role, you have that role, and therefore fulfilling it. And we can see the convents, we can see the schools, we can see the hospitals, all of these institutions that are there run by women, and therefore nurturing and taking care of life, as opposed to now we have that of Francis Bacon and that introduction of that idea that everything has a use. And therefore, we have to find that use and get the most out of that to, again, aggrandize ourselves, become rich, exploit. And I think that women have to realize that they are being exploited insofar as that aspect is how can and what can I get out of a woman? And the world doesn't, especially today when it constantly complains about too many children, the world today doesn't look at a woman of being productive as a mother. She only sees the woman as productive if she's in the workforce. And therefore in the workforce, which is we see, is that again that the state, the corporations, etc., are getting as much as they can from the woman. And therefore reaping the profits.
What would you say then if a woman said, well, it's easy for you to say, Father, but we can't make it on, you know, okay, it's all good in theory, but if I don't go out there and sign myself over to the corporate to, as you say, get in and engage in the secular world and make money, then my family's going to potentially suffer. How do we get this chicken egg? You know, you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying.
Egg sort of thing.
But I think it's a surrender, right? It's a surrender of femininity. It's a surrender of a woman being able to say, I'm a woman. How come you are not treating me, respecting me as a woman? And that aspect is because the forbidden fruit again is offered.
So you're saying society is reshaping the idea of what a female should be in today's world. Would that explain why, when you look at male and female, the propensity of stress and women seeking therapy and with mental health issues has exploded over the last, when women's liberation and things were supposed to elevate and make women happier, are we really putting a round peg in a square hole and seeing the results of that now?
Definitely we are, because a woman cannot be a man, even in that mental capacity. She has that of, as we know, again, that of, for the most part, that of endearment, that of, again, wanting to embrace, that again of wanting to assist and help. And even if you see most of those, when you look at the movements that are there, that are supported and engaged by women, it's still in that sense of, again, assisting, helping. And it's sad when it comes to a woman who, again, chooses to take care of a dog instead of a child. But she's impelled to take care of something. And so when we see this, then definitely we realize that it's only because she's afraid that if she embraces a child, the woman will condemn, the world will condemn her. Whereas if she embraces...
not necessarily men.
No.
That will condemn, because sometimes, as we know, women can be more critical of other women, but you're saying there's a nature that can't be changed, and even though society wants to reshape that and say, well, you can do this, you just have to try to do this, and this is the steps you have to take, and society is sort of bearing
and you can learn, but the aspect is you're going contrary. Okay, you're going contrary to that which, so to say, you're designed, you're made to do that. I mean, I can use a bat to hit a ball. I can use it also to hurt somebody. But the aspect is, what was it made for? And therefore its proper use. And so when we see this, then definitely we have to realize that it fits in that role. And so the aspect of, unfortunately, as we were talking about before with the Vatican Council, and accepting that realization of the world now saying, what can I get out? And the woman, again, looking at that aspect that she's no longer valued as a mother, trying to say, well, where is my value? Well, if my value isn't there, my value is where men are, because they're valued for the positions, then I want also that position.
Well said.
Right? I want that position too, as opposed to...
Well, I don't want to talk about the demonic necessarily in the role of the ideas that get put in people's heads, and they're certainly conveyed in social media and things like that, this sort of idea that, you know, you're a failure if you're a stay-at-home mom and things like that. But what do you say to the women that say, well, it's easy for you to say, Father, because back in biblical times, women their status was low. They could not bear witness in a court of law because they were considered undependable as witnesses and things. Now we have more women studying in the professions than ever before. We have more women in the workforce than men now. So why shouldn't that carry over to what are we lacking in that we can't do what you do there and offer a sacrifice of the Mass? Or we have this push towards, will women be deacons in the church next and deaconesses or whatever. Address why. Is it because the church says that there is a difference and we're not going to participate in putting a round peg in a square hole? Or explain a little bit about how you answer a woman that says our role is, we're better educated now and we have great minds and thoughts and leadership abilities too.
And that can be true, but that's not that order that God has put in. And we have to realize that God, again, arranges things to, again, remind us of that order. And so a man, again, even if he comes into the priesthood, has that aspect that he, again, is responsible for his family, his spiritual family. And therefore, it has that aspect. This is what a man's role is. And if you take that example out, then what is the role of a priest? What is the role of a man? What is the role of a woman? And so definitely taking that aspect of saying it doesn't matter.
So what you're saying is it has a potential to further imbalance, to
Yeah,
make a tough situation.
And if it doesn't matter, then nothing matters. So why even have that of the church?
What about the aspect of humility and humbleness that we're taught as a Catholic? It's one reason we bend our knee and get down on our knees for a great amount of time. And we have to serve something. We're told that we need to just not so much accept, but understand why we need to be this way, because there's something greater than we are. And there's something greater within the church than we are. And when we humble ourselves, we improve ourselves in.
We do, because obviously those outward actions again form our interior thoughts. Why am I kneeling? Because I'm asking God, who is our creator, who again has redeemed us, who again is the one who sanctifies us. I'm asking God, who myself I understand is nowhere comparable to him, for something. And if I can't again acknowledge that, then why would God pay attention to me? What would he see in me that again says, I'm willing to give you this? And so that aspect is, I can't go to a neighbor's mother as a child and ask for something, expect her to give it to me. I have to go to my mother. And therefore I go, and of course I give that proper respect, and she again bestows it upon me. So there's all those indications that it says our interaction is expressed by how and who we are addressing, and then our expectations at the same time. And so if I'm not humble enough to again accept that which God has, I refuse to again submit myself. It would be like me who again refuses to submit to doing the schoolwork and expecting the teacher to give me an A.
Well, it's a lack of an expression of love, correct?
Definitely.
And it's saying
if
we
you
need something that you have,
yeah.
And I don't. It's an admission that says I don't have it within myself, and I want it. And you can understand why the push is for a lot of women that they want to. They believe that perhaps partaking in the priesthood and being a deacon will somehow draw them, will even more make them, say, a better Catholic. So tell me how they can best express, how they can best put this desire into practical use within a church. To what role do you think helps them best express themselves, their needs within the Catholic Church?
And that of, again, giving of themselves to that of those who are within the church and outside also, but giving themselves, giving them first and foremost to that of their children, right? Because even if they are a deaconess or whatever they might want to be at the church, if they're neglecting their family, where's the mother? This is the most important aspect. And somehow saying, if I have this, is only to say I'm wanting to conquer. Conquer what? Because there's no benefit there. It doesn't do anyone.
You're saying it's a matter of values.
It's a matter of values.
Is it a value to take something to myself? I don't want to call it an act of selfishness, because I can't call somebody that thinks that it's worshiping a higher order. But you're saying there's a balance in life, and there's something that's going to inevitably, you're not Superwoman. There's something that is going to inevitably suffer if I try to take on these dual roles, and I do have children, which brings me to, is it underappreciated, the role of motherhood these days? And we put an iPad, and fathers are, you know, I'm not letting fathers off the hook, but I'm saying, you know, iPad company and iPad babysitting and interaction these days. In other words, how do we encourage women to look at that balance and to see that what they might not see as the most fulfilling function is actually the most critical function in Christianity, is the next the responsibility that you feel as a priest towards your congregation, a woman would feel towards her child in the faith, to have that child have every opportunity to also get to heaven one day. So how do we up the value of that and bring that back into mind?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's devalued because of the fact that so many children today are brought into the world without that of a family. And therefore, as such, again, that child is looked upon as a burden, as opposed to a mother who, again, says, I have brought forth a child. And that realization, again, that cooperation, that miracle that is there, that you can't go to some industry and ask them to start producing children. She did it. And that realization that child can be the next Einstein, the next president.
It's interesting that you said that the women are the givers of life. They're the ones that are responsible for shaping life and
the future.
The future and things. There's a lot to chew on here, Father. It's not an easy thing, because I can say in the parishes that I know that many women are eager to fulfill more of a role.
Unfortunately, if I may interject, I would say, unfortunately, they're running away from the responsibility. They know, and unfortunately, they're running away from the responsibility. They think that if they have something, quote unquote, that the world values higher, that releases them from that of their role, and somehow they've got to come back to their role of recognizing that the most valuable thing that can happen is bringing life into this world.
You think it's misplaced envy of the idea of a male doesn't have, it's a carefree life of, I can basically live as I want, and if things don't work out, well, it's you're in charge of the baby, and I'll try to give you a few bucks once a month, but
there's all those variables that, again, can come there, but it comes first with, how do I perceive myself as a woman? Which would be the same, how do I perceive myself as a man? And therefore, again, what is the greatest role, right? And the greatest role of a man doesn't seem to be as great as that of a mother. In fact, if you were to look at that of the man is basically there to guide the family, to support, to protect, to provide. But he doesn't bring life into this world. It's the woman. And therefore, his role is actually, as we can see Christ giving his life for the church, that of the man is actually giving his life to the woman. And therefore, who would you, if you were to say, if I give my life for somebody, it has to be something even higher than I am. That basically speaking, just in that act itself is actually saying that woman has a place.
Yes.
And we sometimes forget this in the Catholic Church, but it's that same concept that why we put Mary on an altar. Not to worship her, but to realize that of her exalted position of bringing life, eternal life, into this world.
It's also an example to me of humility and humbleness to serve, as you say, we always have to, something greater than us we have to recognize things greater than us to lift us up. We're not able to do that. We can't lift each other up in a horizontal world where we have no lifting power. It has to come from above us, but it's fascinating the way you touched on that, because I perceive the Catholic Church today is bending as hard as it possibly can, like a green twig, to bend as much as you can to be accommodative and to increase the role of women by being lecterns and allowing girl altar servers and things like that, Father. But is there a point where I think what I'm hearing you say is there's a truth to be told here, and whether you like to hear it or not, this is the truth that the church holds. And it's you either humble yourself and accept that and understand why that's the case, or you do not. Do you think that
Yeah, definitely. The aspect is this is not your role, and you're doing an injustice taking that role away, and that's why we're seeing less and less men being men, because of the fact that being that you're now saying this is a woman's job, then why would a man want to do a woman's job, psychologically speaking? That aspect is you have to recognize this is not your role. Your role, again, is to be there to make sure that the poor are fed.
Now, you're not saying that there's a role that we're inflicting on you. There's a nature to you that has to be, that one way or another, you're going to come to understand that one way or the other.
It's a role that is being neglected, because who's neglecting it? They are.
Right, because we have the rise of statistics tell us that more women than ever before are depressed, especially young ones, because they look at the role not of what they feel like they're naturally inclined to do, but they now feel like society is dictating what they must be to be considered a successful young woman.
And that goes back, as I said, to Francis Bacon.
And that's taking a toll on that, and relating that back to Francis Bacon.
That selling point, how much can I get from this person? And that's when I'm going to look at that person. How much? If I get a high price for her beauty, then I'll sell her for her beauty. If I get a high price for her labor, I'll get it from her labor. But that's what is being directed towards them, and it's sad that they don't grasp the aspect that they're being exploited.
Well, I happen to think we're coming to a point where I am seeing some blowback here. We are seeing some return because we've turned to psychology so much now, and mood stabilizers and other things to help us get through a day. And I think some measure of enlightenment is occurring now, that there's something unnatural about what's going on, and society is bearing the markers of that now. And I don't feel, in other words, I feel like my freedom is being taken away now. Mm-hmm. I have to be who you say I am, or I'm not a success. Therefore, I have to cope with that mentally somehow. And I think that we're starting to see a little bit of especially with Gen Zs and the younger women that are coming along now and saying, I don't know if I want to do that role, and I don't know if I want to be a union leader and a CEO of General Motors or something like that. I just might want to be a mother and nurture and take care of my children. So, Father, as usual, it's been a fascinating discussion to talk to you. It's been enlightening. There's a lot to think about. I'm sure there's going to be many, many comments in the comments section down below. We always say you can express anything in the English language in a proper way. So please be respectful when you do make comments. Think about things. I don't think a lot of times in society we pause, as you say, to sit someplace where it's quiet and just think about things that we hear. And we're taking in so much information and processing so much every day that we lose a little bit we lose a lot in being able to be reflective and think about maybe there's a lot of sensibility in what we hear. So thank you again, Father, and I'm just going to interject before we give Father some final words here and a blessing. If you've liked these discussions, as I have certainly enjoyed it, they've been far beyond what I expected them to be. Please like and subscribe and share these videos out. It's refreshing to sit with a priest that's so considered and so deep in the thoughts about these ideas we've talked about. So please like and subscribe, share these videos with others in your family. If you're in the Las Vegas area and you would like to jumpstart your Catholic faith, or if you're interested in joining the Catholic Church and coming and be a part of that, come on the Sunday, 10 o'clock. They have the high mass here. There's other masses too, but 10 o'clock is the beautiful Latin mass service down here. You can meet Father Krier. You can partake of that. As I always say, Father Krier might put a donut in your mouth at the kitchen after mass and a cup of coffee, but he will shake your hand and welcome you. And Father's also very giving of his time. There are links down below. Over 500,000 meals have been served by the efforts of Father Krier and his volunteers over 20 years here in a very tiny facility with a lot of heart. If you'd like to support that through Amazon, there's a link down below. The Amazon wish list has items that are critically needed here to take care of taking care of our neighbor through weekday feedings. There's also a link if you would like to be supportive for we're in the final stages of raising money for a parish hall here, and there's videos explaining the need for that and what the parish hall will look like. And finally, there's links also for donating. And if you would like to get a Father Krier's weekly letter that he puts out on Saturday afternoons explaining the Catholic faith in great detail, I'm sure he would be happy to sign you up if you call the office. The number is down below. So take a deep breath, turn it over to Father Krier now for some final words and a blessing here as we wrap up Feminism, Females in the Catholic Church.
And then just keep in mind that, you know, we have to see where we fit in and the best and what's going to, again, benefit of all our brothers and sisters. And of course, God, who is all-knowing, knows that, and of course has arranged things such that we again can see that with that of our families. If we have that mother there who again is showing that love to her children and forming our future, that definitely that future is going to be accordingly. And if it's a good future, then definitely we're going to have a good future. So thank you for also listening to me. Benedictio omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, et sunt super vos et manet semper. Amen.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thumbs up or appreciate it.